Reach for the stars. You know, at different ages, I think we reach for different stars, right? There was a group of 40-year-old friends, girlfriends, and they were deciding where to go for dinner. And they talked and talked, and they finally decided they'd go to the Ocean View restaurant because, well, now guys, you may have a little different rating system, but they said they have good-looking waiters who wear tight pants and have nice buns. They wanted to go there. So 10 years later, there was a group of 50-year-old girlfriends, the same ones, and they too were deciding where to go to have dinner, and they talked and finally said, you know what, let's go to the Ocean View restaurant. They have a really good menu and a fine wine selection. Okay, 10 years passed. The same group of 60-year-old girlfriends, and they talked and talked about where to meet for dinner, and they said, I wonder where to go. Well, let's go to the Ocean View restaurant because, you know, it has a place where you can really experience quiet and conversation, and we can see the ocean view there too. Well, then go ahead another 10 years till the girls are 70, and they were deciding where to go, and they said, talked and talked and talked. Let's go to the Ocean View restaurant. It has easy access, and it even has an elevator. So at 80 years old, 10 years later, when they were 80 years old, the girls got together again. They were deciding, where in the world do we want to go for dinner? And they talked and talked and talked, and finally decided, let's go to the Ocean View restaurant. We've never been there before. Things change in this external world. The physical changes, that's for sure. But what we're talking about today is finding the things that last. Because the outer world does change, and thank God it does, because it makes life interesting, painful sometimes and difficult to remember, but it makes life interesting. But the inner world, our inner world and the inner work we do affects everything we do in the outer world. Would you agree with me? Once we change what's going on in there, because there's something in us that is not only eternal and infinite, but remembers. You know, we need to start acting our age. We do. We could act 4 billion years old when the planet was first created, or we could act 13.7 billion years old, which when the universe was created. Because scientists have a new cosmology that tells us that the stuff that created the whole universe is in our cells. We're part of it all. So we have a remembrance in us of the whole kit and caboodle of life. We also have free will, though. So we can forget that we have choices that we can make, that we can remember things, we can do work in where we get so distracted by life. You know, I've said this so many times recently, especially during this pandemic thing, when Joseph Campbell said, the world is a mess. Because it really is a mess, but it's supposed to be a mess. Because messes are the way we learn that we can't depend on what's out there all the time. We have to do our inner work. We're constantly, our inner work, that divine spark, that divine wisdom that's within us is always there. We're at the threshold of infinite wisdom and unlimited creative potential if we do our work, if we're willing to do the hard work. Here's what Maya Angelou says. She says, we delight in the beauty of a butterfly. We delight in that beauty. But how often do we admit the work it took to achieve that beauty? Think of what that butterfly had to go through to be fully expressed and to share its beauty with the world. That process of having to eat and eat and eat until you were so heavy you couldn't move, and then talk about isolation. Think about living in that cocoon. Had to live in that cocoon until it actually had to melt everything it knew about itself into imaginal cells. It had to melt what it thought it was so it could become something new. And then it became the butterfly. It had a trust and faith in life that we don't always have. Too often, I think, especially in this world, Kirk and I were out this week and we were watching some of the kids that was after one of their soccer games and watching them play and have fun. And we thought about the innocence of our kids at that age and these kids with their phones and different things that are going on. And it's just a different world out there now and it's going so fast. But how fast are we going to go? Because that's not where we find our connection to the thing that lasts. And there's a story in Mark Nepo's book, The One Life We're Given, where he shares about a Nobel Prize winning writer, Andre Gide, who went to Africa in 1926 for an exploration of his life. He was going there to go on an expedition. And what the Europeans did at that time is they hired the natives to go with them. So he was there. They had a long day of traveling and going through the desert and the land. And the next morning, Andre woke up and he was ready to go. But the native guides sat in a circle and they refused to leave. Can you believe that? Andre said, "No, get up, we're going." And this is how they replied. They said, "Don't hurry us. Don't hurry us. We're waiting for our souls. We're waiting for our souls to catch up with us." Can you relate to that? Can you relate to that feeling? We're waiting for our souls to catch up. How often are we just moving through life at such a speed that we're not bringing in the presence? Because it was so beautiful when you were reading Sage from Dr. Sorensen, that yeah, there is an engineer we call God, but we're to be co-pilots, co-engineers. We need to work together because yes, that infinite divine intelligence is there. It needs an outlet, a channel to work through. It needs a channel to work through, and that's us. We are designed to be that channel of infinite intelligence and creativity. That's why we're here. But if we don't stop to get in alignment with who we are. Now, Martine's sitting there in practitioner class. She said, when we were doing all this deep work with Ernest Holmes, she said, "Oh, it's like PPP. Pause, plug in, proceed." We have to pause first. We need to learn to listen because the Spirit is constantly wanting to guide us, to be there for us, to reveal to us. But we need to do our part and pause. Where right now in your life, just think, do you need to take a minute and let your soul and your body and your mind and your heart catch up with each other? It's usually, or often anyway, at the place where we feel most broken. And we don't want to feel the pain. We don't want to be in the hurt. We don't want to be in that fear. We just avoid it. Fear of the unknown, fear of getting hurt, fear of whatever. And so we harden up ourselves and we're afraid. We forget that the light and the choice is within us. Maya Angelou also said, well, I'm just saying, we don't have to stay in awful situations. We don't have to do that. Maya Angelou said, if you are experiencing something uncomfortable, something you don't want, something you want to change, then change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude about it. So if there's something in your life right now you want to change, it's like, oh, do I have to do that deep work? Do I have to do the work to change it? Oh, well, yeah, you either have to do the deep work and change it or change your attitude about it first. And then you'll have a different experience, and that's what we're here for. We need to do the work so we are in alignment and are listen enough to know when we need to stop and when we need to go. Mark Nepo said, hold on, let go. How do we know how to decide when we're to hold on, move fast, get going, speed up, or when we're to slow down, let go? We have that decision. We live in a paradox every single day, and we have to decide when is our time. And the only way we'll get that is by going in and doing the difficult work. I want you to think in your life, where is it that you need? You see, when we do the work, when we do the inner work, what we're doing is we're finding meaning for the difficult things That has saved my life. It has saved my life to know that life is good. There has to be meaning in life. There has to be meaning in experiences, as hard and difficult as they are. There's something there for us always, not sometimes, but always. We need to do the work. Mark Nepo also tells a story of the honeybees, which I love. How many of you like bees? How many are a little afraid of bees because you're allergic to them? Raise your hand, Kirk. Okay, that's okay too. But bees are so awesome. They bring sweetness to life, but they have to work so hard. They're so little, and they work so hard. Honeybees are attracted to pollen and nectar and flowers because the honeybee will go to the flower and suck out the nectar and put it in her second stomach, because she has a second stomach just to hold nectar. Did you know that? No, me neither, until just now. Or well, maybe a few minutes before this. But yeah, a second stomach to hold nectar. And she will fill that second stomach up to almost her own weight. She has to go to 50 to 100 different flowers to get the nectar to fill up her stomach. And then she goes back to the hive, carries it back. And I've never seen a bee fly slowly, so I think she must fly at the same speed. But she goes back there weighing all this weight, and a worker bee comes up and sucks the nectar out of her second stomach. And then that worker bee has to chew on that nectar for about an hour. Chew on it to soften it, to break it down, so it can turn into honey. Hint, hint, hint. We tell you to meditate for 5-10 minutes. This worker bee, an hour. And then the worker bee puts the nectar in the honeycomb, and then the bees seal up the honeycomb until the honey gets made. The offer for us is if we have the courage to look at the tough things in our life. It often takes someone else to be with us. I know Kirk and I had our 47th anniversary this week. And we've had some bumpy times, but the good thing is I married my best friend. So we can talk about the tough things. We can talk about the things we're really, really scared of, that we don't like, the things we're ashamed of, and that make us sad. And it helps. It helps if you have somebody to share those, so you can chew them up together and make sense of them. Because if they're out in the open, if it's a best friend, if it's a spouse, if it's a counselor, if it's a practitioner, whoever you're talking to, if you can get those things out and chew them up, you can weave them into a meaningful life. And that's what we want for all of us, a meaningful life. So we have to pause and listen, and then plug in so we know we're in alignment with the presence, that we can do our work together and be out in the world. And then what are we going to do? How many of you feel that the world is a bit challenging right now? There's a lot of things that we have to do, a lot of work we need to do. I'm going to share this little reading. I was remembering a talk I went to by a beautiful woman. Our daughter had brought us there. It was years and years ago. And I was remembering just how good she made me feel. She's actually a lecturer, an author, an active environmentalist, and a teacher of Buddhism. And she's a beautiful woman. Funny, oh my gosh, just wonderful. But I was looking her up, and here her newest book, I don't remember the name of it, but this is something that came from her, just a clip about her book. We face profound challenges today that can be difficult to think about. We must focus on strengthening our capacity to face these crises so we can respond with expanded resilience and creative power. Our response must be possibility-driven. Our response must be possibility-driven to the world in front of us. It must be rooted in compassion and focused on bringing us together in such a way we can create anything we set our minds to. And this is where I got the phrase, which reminded me so much about the work we do here at InSpirit. We need to do the work that reconnects us instead of separates us. This is the transformational work that is shared by the mystics and by spirituality. that call us to be awake. Grief, anger, and fear are healthy responses to threats to life. However, they are not life-sustaining. Love is. We must be instruments of love. If we are the way God, life, infinite spirit knows itself, we must use our hands and our hearts and our minds to bring us together. Maya Angelou, again, she was my favorite person this week to read her quotes. She said, people will forget what you did. They'll forget what you said. But they'll never forget how you made them feel. So our job today, our call to action is to go out. Yeah, find somebody safe to talk to about the things that are upsetting to you or difficult. Have the courage to do that so you can weave them together in something more meaningful. But then go out and share your life, your love, your goodness with the world. You know, our hands, if we're the hands of God, they are vulnerable. We can feel with them, but we can also hug with them. These hands may have been hands that have touched somebody in a way that have changed their life. They may be the hands that give someone the last connection they have here on earth. They can be a hand that makes someone know they're important and they matter. Let your hands be used for good because they're guided by your heart. They're guided by love. I want you to say this after me. Just know this for today. Today, I am available to be used and to be useful, to be loved and to be loving, to be open to grow, to be open to change, and to share my light and my love in so many ways. And give yourselves a hug. Give yourselves a big hug because you're special, you're wonderful, you matter. I care about each and every one of you, and I know we all care about our community. We're going to go out and do our work in the world and make this world a better place, right? Yes, okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you. Have the courage to grow, and so it is.